The most stunning trade in NBA history just went down a few hours ago, and that ain't hyperbole, as it's the morning after late last night. The Lakers and the Mavericks completed a blockbuster trade, swapping Luka Doncic from the Mavericks to the Lakers for Anthony Davis. I had watched the Saturday night primetime game between the Lakers and the Knicks in Madison Square Garden, where they won. And then 2 hours later, I looked down on my phone. I was all like, yeah, like that. And I think that's everybody's reaction to this trade, just because what makes this trade so stunning is how it just came out of nowhere. No buildup whatsoever that the Mavericks were going to approach anyone to trade Luka Doncic, a guy that's been dynamite since he entered the league back in 2019, has had tremendous success individually, good amount of success, team wise. I know they haven't won a championship, but got into the conference finals a couple times. Just made the NBA finals last year. He's always performed great in the playoffs. Obviously, he's been fantastic in the regular season. It seems guaranteed that he's going to have an MVP in his future. They come up and they trade, just come up to trade him. It's just like, God damn, man. That's why it was blowing up, just because no one saw this trade coming at all. I'd say on both sides too, because the Lakers didn't seem like they were going to trade Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis came out last week and said before the trade deadline he was hoping that the Lakers would sign a center just so he wouldn't have to play power forward. So he's seemingly committed to playing in Los Angeles, and the team's actually been pretty good this year. So completely stunning on both sides. I actually think it's a lot more interesting from the Mavericks perspective in terms of this trade, just because from the Lakers, look, even though Anthony Davis has been playing great the last like 2.5 years, he was injury prone for a bit there in LA for a few years, but last few years he's been unbelievable. He's been their best player consistently, dominant defensively. I'd say really, really good offensively, like 90 or 80% of the time. It seems like he was a solid bet to go around going forward, even though he is in his 30s now. But the idea of getting a 25-year-old, guy that's been a superstar since he came in, even if he's not perfect, you can understand why doing that trade, because it really feels like it sets you up if you're the Lakers for the next, 10 years if Luka doesn't have some sort of unexpected drop off. But like I said, this is way more interesting from the Mavericks perspective, just because you have a guy that is that caliber of player. Luka's not perfect. He's got, major conditioning issues when it comes to getting ready, not getting ready in the off season. And I do think he tends to kind of break down as, games deeper into the playoffs, at least seemingly, just because he's carrying his play style. He carries such a load in terms of handling the ball and scoring. But he got does so much other stuff great, man. The guy is, he's physical. He can shoot it. He's obviously a great distributor. The guy's a playmaker. He's a triple double just waiting to happen with how he stuffs the staff sheet. There's no stat sheet. There's nobody that stuffs the stat sheet more than Luka Doncic, besides maybe Nikola Jokic in the last 10 years. The guy just puts up crazy numbers. And he's been all NBA first team 5 times in his first, I think it's like 6 or 7 seasons. That's just unbelievable individual success going when you're starting off with. And if you're a franchise, that's the kind of player that you want to build around, especially when, it's not like they've been a disaster by any means. Like I said, they've made the conference championship 2 times, made the NBA finals last year. The team, he's been injured this year and they haven't had the year that they wanted to build off last year. But it still seemed like, you have Luka Doncic, the guy's basically untouchable. But there must have been, and this is still the early hours of this trade, we're not even a full day after, but there's going to be a lot of stuff to come out in terms of why this trade went down at all. In terms of from the Mavericks perspective, they're the ones that approached the Lakers, according to the major reports from NBA insider Shams Charania. So something in the background is probably going on, because there's been headlines about the trade that said that the Mavs' issues when it came to Luka Doncic's conditioning, they were just growing tired of. That's what some of the other insiders were saying, that the Mavericks were kind of fed up with Luka. The Mavericks being fed up with Luka, that's not something you would have guessed would have been said, like a year ago, 2 years ago, whatever. Like I said, the guy's been a great player for them. Obviously, one of the best players in the league, consensus top 5 player at the least, most likely top 3 if you're, going between Nikola Jokic, Giannis, maybe Shea Gilgeous-Alexander now, and then you throw Luka right there. He's on that caliber. And to move on from a guy that seemed that was going to be, your centerpiece, one of the obviously one of the greatest players in your franchise's history. You have Dirk Nowitzki, and then it seemed like Luka Doncic was going to be that guy where individually he was just going to be with that franchise and just have every franchise record before his career was all said and done. You have that caliber player and you move on to them from him. That means there was just a lot of issues going on. Like I said, the major one that's been reported is that whole thing with his conditioning, which I do get to some degree because Luka Doncic, there are times where they show him at the start of the season and he was just like, man, this guy just didn't give a fuck in the off season. He just ate whatever he want, drank whatever he want, kind of does that thing what Shaq does where he'll play his way into shape. And to his credit, the guy does play his way into shape eventually because in the regular season puts up unbelievable numbers. Now this year has been a down year for him, compared to what his usual production over the last handful of years. He's been injured since this Christmas Day. He's had a calf injury, calf strain. And even before then, he wasn't putting up the great numbers in terms of the last few years that he's been putting up, for the last few seasons. And so I don't know if part of all that behind the scenes stuff just kind of came together. It does seem like a bit of a rash decision for the Mavericks, but the deal is said and done, and both teams are gonna have to move on. I think from the Mavs perspective, they're saying that this puts them in win now territory. And I would say that because when you have Anthony Davis and Kyrie Irving and Klay Thompson, you're not exactly building for 10 years from now. These are all guys that are over 30 now. I believe Kyrie's over 30. I'm pretty sure. But yeah, these are guys where you have these guys, you got to like start building like now, ready to go now, ready to build now. And you're not exactly having time just to F around and do nothing, So they're trying to make some noise right now in the playoffs, win a championship, build off what they did last year. From the Lakers perspective, it's super interesting just because now they're having a guy, they're putting their bets on a guy that's going to be the top of the franchise for another, 10 years or so now. Luka Doncic is that young, he's 25, that caliber of player. So they're betting on that. And it's kind of interesting from LeBron's perspective because usually trades like this for when LeBron's team's involved, LeBron is kind of behind the scenes, wheeling and dealing. That's kind of how the Anthony Davis got to LA in the first place. Both of them clutch clients, same agent. But, from this perspective, from LeBron, he's all reports and I believe it, he had no idea this trade was going down. He was just like, I think they said he was having dinner with his family, saw the report, just like, what? It's really been the first time where he's not in the loop for something on this caliber when it comes to his own team. And the even bigger dynamic now is that it's really the first time where on a LeBron team, LeBron and his interest isn't really the focus. He's definitely not the best player on the team anymore when Luka Doncic is healthy and right. And obviously, the team's priority is going to be building around him for the next 10 years or so. Whereas LeBron has maybe, I'd say, probably not going to retire this year, most likely. But next year, I would kind of bet on being his last year in LA or anywhere in the NBA. And so now, it's that dynamic is very interesting from LeBron's perspective, knowing that, man, that's just like, I'm just kind of like I almost feel like an outsider now on this team. I do feel bad for Anthony Davis, some degree, just kind of being blindsided like that. I feel bad for both guys, to be honest. That's kind of the crazy business of sports where, that's why players sometimes take things into their own hands because they know that they're at the mercy of trades like this. You can put your heart and soul to a team, be bent on spending your next, 7, 10 years with a team. And then all of a sudden you're just like, whoa, where the hell did this come from? For the Lakers this year, Lakers have had a pretty actually good season compared to what I thought they were going to do this year. Do I think this really helps them right now? I don't know. There's both advantages and disadvantages to Luka Doncic. I think the real issue for the Lakers right now is having no rim protection. So it is going to be just an easy time at the basket for the Lakers until they get a big man. That's what Anthony Davis was pleading for. We needed another center, not to get rid of me, your only real center besides power forward, big man right now. So that's with that. But everything coming together makes this, without a doubt, the most stunning trade in NBA history. You know, normally you don't want to go hyperbole when it comes to that, but even trades that have been big, like Anthony Davis a handful of years ago, Kevin Durant a couple years ago, when he got traded to the Suns and other trades here and there, they're ones that you could see coming, where a guy had like a year or so left on his contract, clearly disgruntled, and just things weren't working out. But this is one where just no one saw it coming. 1 minute, Lakers are winning a great game in MSG. Seems like, Anthony Davis didn't play, but he's rehabbing. Luka Doncic, he's injured, but whatever. Going to be the face of the franchise for another 10 years or so, score like 30,000 points for the team or whatever. And all of a sudden, boom, swap for swap. So that is the crazy business of the NBA and a crazy night of the most stunning trade in NBA history.